All right. Welcome, y'all, to the Reinvent Yourself Personal Freedom Show. This is the 12th season of Reinvent Yourself, and I've done a couple seasons under the Awaken Your Greatness banner. And this is the second time we've done personal freedom as a theme. So this is a great topic. It's fun to talk about. Personal freedom is one of my pillars for life and one of the filters that I use to filter most of my decisions, if not all, through. It's something I've always seeked. It's something I'm always seeking. And I think is an important topic. So I'm excited for today's guest, Becca Lewis, absolute rock star. I'm going to read a short intro and then I'll turn the speaker or the spotlight over to you and you can introduce yourself. But Becca, for over 30 years, has been an author and a coach and has been helping creative people who are stuck to see life differently and shift their perception and lives toward the infinite. So there's a lot I want to talk about even inside of that. So Becca, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. 12 seasons of this. Congratulations. That's fantastic. You must have changed a lot of people's lives by now.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I hope so.
For sure.
Well, let me ask you this. I'd love for you to introduce yourself because you have you've lived such a full life. You have such a full storied background of, how you've played life. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story as to what got you here serving people the way that you are, now and what that looks like.
Well, as you know, that could take up, we could be here for a couple of days, but I'll just squish it down. And my life today is so different from the many other lifetimes that I've lived that sometimes I think, did I actually do all that? But it all really boils down to the same idea, like what we were talking about is like helping people find who they are and what they want to do. And I think I've been doing that as long as I can remember, and sometimes very annoyingly. And I think often very annoyingly when I think about it. But the intent was always like, can I help people think of doing something different or better? Or have you thought of that? But I started out in State College, Pennsylvania, which is where Penn State is. So I grew up in a college town, which is the best college town probably in the world because I've gone to look at many college towns since then, and I still love it. It's still an amazing place. And then I left because I thought I needed to grow out of being the daughter of a professor in a college town. I needed more freedom, personal freedom, because I was kind of, oh, she's his daughter, and I wanted more than that. So I took my small family, said I'm moving to California, hadn't seen anything other than the Graduate movie to know what it looked like, and went try to go to school there, but ended up having to work. So I worked a lot of different jobs, and each one taught me a little bit more about myself, about what life is. And I've really moved. I've had so many different jobs. I tried to list at one time, and I ran out after about 3 pages. That's it. It's ridiculous. But each one really, I don't discount any of them, the big ones, the small ones, because each one had something that, like reading books, you learn another lifetime, you learn about people. And that was really what was interesting to me, is learning about people and myself, trying to be a better person, which I think all of the people watching your thing, that's what they want to do, is be a better person. And yeah, hopefully that worked a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me this, what do you mean by, what was the word that you used when you were describing helping people do and find their purpose and find their purpose? You use the word, now I'm blanking on the word that you used, but you said something often. It was God, what was it? Difficult at times or trying at times, or it was something like that.
Oh, because I'm annoying.
Annoyingly. Yeah, you said annoyingly. That's what it was. Yeah, what you mean by that?
Yes. Well, I can still see it sometimes, because sometimes I forget not everybody wants to change or wants information or wants to hear from me. And I think that we all learn that. I think over time, I've learned to be a little bit better of a listener, and then deciding, does this person really want any input from me? And I don't mean big things. Like I could be at a grocery store and see, I just did this the other day at the grocery store. I probably annoy them. I just was laughing about they hadn't changed a sign after 4 times I've been there. And since I only go every 3 weeks, so that probably makes like 4 months, there's a sign, wrong sign up in the aisle. So I was laughing because it was still there. And so I went and told someone. Now, was that annoying? It could have been. Or it could have been, well, no one noticed before. Or my mom, if you talk to my mom, she'd say I was very annoying because I was always saying to her things like, Mom, you could do this better if you tried this. And, or did you look at it this way? This might make things better if you did this way. And I meant to be helpful, but some people don't want that in the time or how I do it. So yes, sometimes I'm annoying. You can even ask people I coach sometimes and they say, oh my gosh, I was so mad at you. But then I realized you were right. So it's still annoying sometimes, right?
I get what you mean now. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that. So tell me if I'm wrong. I mean, it seems like you've known your whole life that like it's the way that you look through your eyes into the world. It seems like you're looking at how can I make this better, or how can I improve, or how can I offer something up, or serve, or whatever. I mean, it seems like from all the jobs you said without mentioning any of them, but I know one of them was a financial planner.
Yeah.
But it seems like the thread has always been help people improve their lives. And I'm sure there's somebody listening to this too. Heard this enough from my clients, like to when they were young, maybe I've heard this more so with women, but where the dad or mom is like, you're too much, you're speaking up
Yeah.
too much, right? Like, shut up, like it's too much already. And then their little 7-year-old self is like, oh, I have to be quiet, and then there's a kind of a lifetime unfolding of learning to use
Yeah.
their voice again. Did you ever go through anything like that
Oh,
where,
yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. In spite of me saying that I used to speak up a lot, I was also incredibly shy. And it wasn't until probably 6th grade when I first realized that it was okay to speak up a little bit more because I had a teacher that didn't think, oh, there's that little scrawny little girl. He looked at me like I was a person and asked me questions that he knew I could answer that no one had ever asked me before. So I think people through the years have helped me come out of myself. So now I really have to, I'm still shy. I'm still, I'm, I'm still really private. I still am leery about sharing too much or saying too much or hurting people's feelings. I'm still all that. But I also, you're right, that I think I've also, and I think everybody has this, I've also known that I wanted to change people's lives and make it better. So had it, even that you can know that, you still have to figure out how do you do that as your personal self. And if it's okay that sometimes people get mad at you. So, and it's okay
yeah,
when you don't say things. Sometimes it's not appropriate. So there's all those things, but
yeah, I think
more often
context
than, yeah,
is a lot of
context
it.
is it. Yeah. More
Yeah.
often than not, though, now that I'm so much older, if I see wrong, I'm going to speak out. And so I, I almost have to say to someone who's with me, if you ever see me just getting really mad, it's because now I see something really wrong and I'm going to speak out against them, whoever it is, right in that moment, because I think the problem that a lot of us have, even though we might be shy in private, is we think that we can't make a difference. But everybody that speaks out for someone else will make a difference, no matter how big or how small that might be. So a little less worried about the ramifications of whether I'm annoying than I used to be. So.
Yeah, let me ask you what drives you, and can you so it's two questions. Can you think of an example where you did that recently with someone who wasn't a client?
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well, there's a story I tell. This happened not just recently, but recently enough. My husband works in the woods, and he's like a gardener of forests. That's how I think of him because he maintains forests. And I went to see him one time with my then smaller granddaughter, and this man. Now my husband's big, and this man was really big came out of the woods next to where my husband was, and he started yelling at my husband. Now, I'm not big, but without even thinking about it, I ran over there, got between the two of them and said, "You cannot speak to him that way. You get out of here right now."
Wow.
I didn't think of it. I didn't plan anything. It's just, it was not right. I thought it could have led to something that was dangerous. So I just ran over in there, and so everybody laughs when I tell them that story, because that's pretty silly, but yeah, it's like that.
What happened? Did the guy back up and it was all good?
Yes,
He left?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And yes, it probably was pretty silly, but I think a lot of times that I notice that bullies are also cowards. And if you can stand up to a bully more often than not, because I've had to stand up to many bullies. If I'm serious, if I stand up to them, they will often run away and say, "Oh no, she's hurting me," or doing, and I haven't done anything at all. So I'd be more afraid of someone that isn't so blatantly mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's the loud ones that are outwardly bullying and
Yeah.
loud. Those are
Yeah.
probably the most typically scared and
Scare
cowardice.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the ones that you can't see coming, those are a little more scary. Those are scary. Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. Did you get bullied as a kid at all, or in your?
No, and I say this to people, and and my husband says, "I don't think you noticed," which is very possible, but I didn't notice. No, I didn't. And I wasn't any part of any group, but I was a part of all the groups. And I think I built a little world around myself, and inside that world, it was really a good place. Or it was my class at State College, because I remember the classes being helpful, and we all still know each other. So no, I wasn't. But my dad was someone who had very strong opinions, and I learned to speak to him. We had intellectual disagreements, which we both actually completely enjoyed. So maybe that's where part of that comes from.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's scary to speak out. Maybe it's like in that situation, you weren't scared with the guy with your husband. You went out, and I think sometimes, like you were saying, it may make a difference. You said something to that tune, like it may make a difference, or sometimes we doubt that we can make a difference. But in that example, you made a difference right away, and the guy went away. But I think another scenario, probably infinite scenarios, but another scenario could be that moment goes completely chaotic. But the next time that man is in a situation like that, maybe he rethinks, maybe he thinks about it first, right? And doesn't act the way that he acted in front of your husband. So it's like maybe we see the effect of speaking up right away, and maybe we never even see the effect of speaking up. But there has to be some trust, I think, internally, of like speaking up for the sake of speaking up, and then maybe unattaching from the outcome of it.
I think that's the key point right there, is that, especially as a coach, and the kind of things that you and I both do, is not being attached to the outcome. You're doing it because this is what you do, and you do it the best that you can. You learn, you keep doing it better each time, hopefully, but you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know what you said to someone in the grocery store that was kind, that might have changed their life. You have no idea. But if you do it for the reward or the outcome, it's very depressing, because you don't see it. You won't see most of what happens. So you have to do it because I talk about this, this is this kind of a strange concept, but I explain this to people, and I think everybody kind of understands what I'm saying is, if we came here to this earth world, state of mind, point of view, humans, however you want to define it, from someplace else. So I'm going to assume that we did. I think that at some point we turned around to the people that we were leaving behind and said, when I get there, I promise to do this. And I think we made promises. And the moment when we start figuring out what that promise is, and we think we all know what our promise is. So a lot of people don't ever fulfill it, which is very, I don't, if I want to do anything, I want to help people find their promise and keep it. But
Love that.
I think we made it. And so I think no matter how rich or famous or important you become, if you're keeping your promise, you talk about personal freedom. I think that is personal freedom because you kept your promise. And I don't think keeping your promise is easy. It's rewarding, but not easy. And so I think I made a promise to do what I do. And I think you made a promise. And I think whether you can say it just like this, you made a promise and you've been keeping it. And I am assuming that the moment you decided to keep that promise, your life got better. Or you felt better about yourself, one or the other, which is the same thing, right?
Yeah. And then there's a freedom right in that, like in that exact
Right.
moment, right? Of
Right.
like,
Right. This is what I said. I'm going to do it.
yeah. Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, this is what you're saying in terms of like giving a promise to somebody, like, hey, I'm gonna call you at 1:30, but you're also saying like fulfilling your promise of like spirit from a spiritual standpoint.
Yeah.
The promise I made, I'm going to this planet, I'm gonna take a body, and this is my promise. You're talking about both in both sense.
Yes. However you view that. Yes, I'm saying both those things. And I think when you keep promises, the small promises, like you just said, when you keep that small promise to yourself, then you start trusting yourself, and then you kind of trust the world too. But if you don't keep your small promises, I talk a lot about this in classes that I teach, but I talk about intent. If you make an intent, you're making a promise. And when you say, oh, it's a small one, like you set your alarm clock to get up at a certain time every day. And then every time the alarm goes off, you turn it off. You've not kept your promise to yourself. You set it because you wanted to make a promise to yourself that you'd get up then, or an intent. Take your whichever word you want to use. So after a while, you stop believing that you're going to keep your promises to yourself. So it's the really tiny things. And then if you can't keep a promise to yourself, how can you keep a promise to someone else? How can you keep the promise? It all starts within anyway, but how can you keep the promise that you made to the people on the other, wherever that other reality is before you got here? And at the end of being here, I would like to be able to say, I did my best. I might not have been great at it, but I did my best. And that's really what I think all of us have to just be willing to say, I did my very best and try to get better at as I went along. So,
Yeah. I love the idea of promises. I think it's powerful. I think about it too in terms of like I call it if you don't, like let's say, with that example with the alarm clock, right? And then you start, as you're saying, like you start to erode your trust away for yourself, and then that snowballs into bigger things. So pretty soon maybe you have like 10, 10 things in your life that aren't complete, let's say, or where you're in breakdown or out of integrity with yourself. Maybe that's one, right? I'm gonna get up and get in shape. There's like something on the other side of that, waking up early. So let's say it's fitness,
yeah.
and then maybe there's your taxes. You're not in integrity with your taxes, right? Or there's like that big old pile of mail in the corner or whatever. And then pretty soon there's like 10 or 20 of those things. I call it an energy leak at that
Oh,
point
yeah.
when you have a
It's a,
bunch of those,
it's a
each one of
burden,
those.
isn't it? I mean, you're just
Yeah.
carrying this burden. And I love that idea of energy leak. And I think the plan then is why not? Why aren't you? So instead of blaming yourself and having judgment about it, like what you have to find out what it is. Why am I not keeping my promise? Not, oh, I'm such a bad person. I feel so guilty because I don't even keep my promises to myself. Then that just makes more of what you're calling an energy leak. It just, now you're not even liking yourself. So what, and I use a lot of different profiles to kind of help out, like what does this profile tell me about myself or my clients, that we can go, oh, I know what it is. This is a claim. I know this is a weird way to put it, but this is a claim about you. It's not who you are, but you have to know it. before you can overcome it. You have to say, you can't say, oh, I never keep promises to myself and then expect that you're going to change your perception about yourself. You have to be able to say, I do keep promises to myself. Something's in the way. I'm going to discover what it is. I'm going to let that go so I can keep promises to myself, but not, oh, you're such a terrible person because you just can't even get up in the morning. Because I've never known that to work. I don't think
No.
self-blame and judgment ever makes you a better person. Observation and willingness does, but not blame and judgment. And that guy, I think that goes for, the people in your life that you wish would change. They will when they can. And so if you can give them tools to find out who they are and they want them, as we were talking about at the beginning, if they want them, then you can be helpful that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree that that self-blame and judgment is a trap, right? It's like the snake pit of
Yeah.
I think if we're unconscious, we're going there on purpose in a way, maybe because it's familiar, not because it's helpful or on purpose or anything like that. But it's a weird thing, about like we sometimes look for emotions that don't serve us. You're right. It's like we wake up in the morning probably on a blank canvas, maybe for a fraction of a second or however long. And then it's like, this is uncomfortable. Let me go stub my toe and get angry. And then now I'm angry. It's like, there it is. There it is. There's that anger that I'm used to having every day. All right, let's fucking go,
Yeah,
now
let's get angrier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So helpful, right? Nothing goes right from there. And then you go, oh, this is my life. This is what happens. And if you don't shift your perception about that, you're stuck. So it is a quagmire. It's like, I think Princess Bride, that sucking thing that he fell into. I can't remember what it's called, the pit of despair or something. But
is that what that's from? The pit of despair?
Yeah, Princess Bride. Oh my gosh, you have to watch that.
I gotta watch that again.
It's a great movie. It has so many lessons in it for a great movie. It's really amazing. But yeah, so you can't go there, even though you want to. It's like I have something I tell people to do though. If you're really stuck in something like that, I tell them to do this massive mood moment, and you take a timer or whatever it is, phone, kitchen timer, whatever, and you turn on it for 15 minutes. And then for that 15 minutes, you have to be in that mood completely. You can't have anything else going on. You just have to be furious or depressed or sad or frustrated. And then when the beeper thing goes off, you have to stop. But if you still feel bad, you get to time it, you get to do it again. So you can do it as many times a day, but you only do it in that massive mood moment. Actually, I've never known anybody to get more than a couple of massive mood moments before they start realizing how absurd it is. And then then you break the spell of it. But it works really well if you just got to go for it. Like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Just do a massive mood moment, but you don't get to have any nice thoughts during that 15 minutes. But since the timer's going off, you have to stop then. So you don't get to like wallow in it the rest of the day. But you can do it as many times as you want until it goes away, because it is kind of a mesmeristic state, like a hypnotic state that you've put yourself in, and you just have to break out of it. But it's
what you
not
call it, the massive mover?
A massive mood moment.
Massive mood moment. I love that. You got to be, if you're gonna do it, be all in
Just do
on
it.
whatever
Yeah,
you're feeling.
Just be in a safe place. Don't be around other people. But go for it. Yeah.
I like that.
You start laughing as soon as you think about it, and then it kind of breaks the spell. So, but sometimes we need them.
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna try that next time I get in one. I was in one the other day when I came back from Egypt. I didn't tell you this prior to getting on the show. I'm not gonna tell the story right now, but yeah, I had 60 hours where we got our phone, we got delayed, no sleep for 2 hours of sleep maximum at a time for 60 hours, and I was in that for 60 hours straight. But I wish I had that tool, because that's a cool tool. I'd be like, okay, if I'm gonna be an asshole right now, let me just be an asshole for 15 minutes, all in.
All in asshole, just not to someone else. Just separate yourself from the population while you do it. But other than that, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that's great. I like that tool. Thanks for sharing that one. You know what's funny too? You just made me realize something. I remember reading you were in a BNI years ago, right?
Yeah, I was.
I was in a BNI too. I was a president of a BNI in San Diego, and we had a guy. He was an estate attorney, and you do these every week. One or two people
Yeah,
do a presentation, right? They do a
yeah, yeah,
presentation about their business,
yeah.
and he used to do. He's this older guy, Steve. I love him to death. He was my tax guy too for a number of years, and he was like 82, right? Hardcore guy, old wrestler,
Oh, wow.
just you see him, he looks fragile at first, but he's not fragile at all. He used to come to my workouts when I was in the fitness industry, and he went harder than anyone else out there in his 80s, right? And so, but he's this old weird guy. He walks up to the front of the room and he'd have this weird, like, when you're in elementary school and you make those like dinosaur, like little habitat things or something like for a presentation.
Yeah,
He'd make this whole presentation around and he called it the pit of despair.
that's it.
That was his jam. And he'd go up there with these little like puppet things. And I can't even remember. It's so dumb. And we'd all just start cracking up. Like the whole room, we'd just be looking and just
I
laughing. Like,
love
there
it.
goes Steve again with this pit of despair in a fun way. We loved him. We loved Steve.
Yeah,
And you just circled back like the Princess Bride. That's where that comes from. I never knew
yeah.
that. So you just taught me something there.
That's always good to learn something, right?
Yeah, that's funny. What do you tell me this, like with the people you're working with right now, what do you notice that people are coming to you for right now, especially like pandemic, post-pandemic or kind of
Uh-huh.
pandemic era? You notice anything different, any themes with the people you're working with?
Well, I get such a wide range of people, and they still come for the same. I think they still come for the same thing. Like some people are building businesses, and some people are getting out of businesses or retiring. And now what do I do with themselves? Now what do they do with themselves? Like how do they keep their promise now that they don't have a 9 to 5 job? Which anybody that survived 9 to 5 jobs and can retire from that, then they got to find something new because they've stuck all their energy into that. So I think I've always worked with people who want to know what good can I do out in the world and
Hmm.
how can I do it in my own personal way. So not one of us is the same. We might have made the same promise of sorts, but I'm not going to do it the same way you're going to do it. And that's how it's supposed to be. We're all unique. We all have to kind of blend together. We're all diverse. We should be. So my goal has always been like, who are you? Like, who are you? And what are you doing with that? Who you are? And that does the pandemic. I think had more people say, well, what do I want to do now? Because some people couldn't do what they were doing before. But the question is still that, like, if I get to personal freedom, if I get to choose, which I do, and not me, I mean, we get to choose. Even though some people look like they don't have a choice, yes, you do. You have a choice of how you react to whatever it is. You have a choice. We have a choice all the time, whether how
Hmm.
we're going to react, what we're going to do with our situation. Um, Sometimes it's good situation, sometimes it's bad, but how do I personally react to it? So that's usually what I'm working with, no matter was it 20 years ago or now, it's still the same question. And I think the only thing that might be different now is it's so friggin' confusing. There's so much information and so many people telling you, well, do it this way. Like if they want to build a business, well, do it this way. Well, do it this way. And really, you have to get back to why you're doing it in the first place. And to your subject, personal freedom. What does that mean to you? Is personal freedom to you that you need to do things your way? Do you work better in a group? Do you work better by yourself? Do you work better 5 hours a day squished? Do you work better off and on, off and on? When I'm working, I move all over the house. You can't find me in one specific place. I'll work there in the morning, and then I'm in the bedroom, and then I'm in my office, and then I might be on the deck. So I'm always moving around. So if you told me I had to sit still, oh, now that would feel terrible to me. And I need to be able to look outside and see trees so I can put windows everywhere I am. So no matter where I am, but that feels like freedom to me. I might not be out there, but I can see it. So everybody needs to figure out who's speaking your language. I might not be speaking someone's language, but you might be, and someone else might be, and narrow it down so that you working on what works best for you and not what worked best for your next door neighbor or the guy who says I made $10 million this year and you can do the same thing. So I think that's the major difference is there's just so much noise and narrow it. But when you narrow it down, finding the thing that you do best and what life do you want to live? This is the only one you got right here, right now. And what can you leave behind? Even if it's just one person who's better off because you were here. So it could just be one person. You don't have to change billions of people. You just have to make person's life better than they were before. And I think you've done something amazing. So some people want to do that really big, and some people want to do that really small. So we all have that different version of what works for us.
Yeah, we do. I love that you talk about the information overload. I agree with that. It is challenging to go and, go to a summit like this, opt into my email list and your email list, and then they opt into another guy's email list and another girl's email list, and and they're on YouTube, and then they're on a podcast, and then they're reading a Audible book, and then their friend is starting a business, and then their husband has never been in business but telling them to do this, and then it's like 18 channels of information, and probably 16 of them sound intriguing, especially when it comes to like marketing or how you're going to serve people. And it's like, I could look at 5 different marketing experts and say, yeah, like, man, I should be doing all of those. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And this guy said I should have a website. I should get a website. And this guy said I should do a YouTube channel. And then it's just like, oh my God, it's so much.
So much.
I think that one of the things I do definitely encourage my clients and my audience to do is pick 1 or 2 people,
Yeah,
1, 2, maybe 3 people that you like. If you like me and I make the top 3, great. If not, stop, unsubscribe. You should, if you're just, it's like, you're not doing yourself a service if I become white noise in the background, while you're working. Right. So
right.
What do you find? What's your experience with your clients and audience when you notice, okay, you got information overload? What's your experience as you walk them through that journey of like cutting out all the chatter and being present to 1 or 2 or 3 things that are really going to serve them?
Well, I think it goes back to knowing who you are. So we've been kind of talking about that. If you know who you are, it's easier to cut it out. And there will be times where I let all the subscriptions come in and then pay attention to them, and then they start eliminating them, because I'll go back to like, who are you, Becca? What do you want to do most? And then does that help? Does that help? Does this make me anxious? I think if I get anything, I get anxious. Like I want to please so many people in so many ways, and I want to get this done, and I have to do this. So if I start feeling that anxious over something, then I know that's probably not my path. I know if I choose something that makes me feel creative, that's probably going to be, it's going to be better for me. If it's a creative thing, if it's something that I can understand easily and be creative in it, and then I'm speaking to people who are kind of like me, then that's going to work better for me. So it really comes down to, who are you? How much information can you handle? And it's okay that you don't listen to everybody. I really think we have to be willing to be open to new ideas. That's otherwise will turn into like people who only have this much, and since it's our perception that allows in information, we have to once in a while go, okay, I'm willing to listen, but I would be terrible at that. Oh no, I wouldn't. I'm not a performer. I mean, I like speaking in front of people, but I don't make people laugh very often unless I just fall over myself. I'm not a comedian, so I wouldn't want to do that. So there's a lot of things. And the really hard part about this, though, is that there's some things you don't want to do that you really should be doing. So how do you figure out what that is? Like, are you resisting something because it's what you really want? But I think again, I keep going back to that. When you know yourself, you start recognizing, oh, I'm not making that phone call because if I make that phone call, I might get what I want. And
Yeah.
it might involve a whole lot of work, but that's really the direction I want to go. So you just more and more self knowledge about yourself. However you do that, I go for walks. That's where that helps me do a lot of things. But I know some people sit in long meditations and they can do that, or but wherever you can hear the inner voice direct you, because that's really who should be directing you, not the outer voice. When you hear the inner voice direct you, then you can make better choices. The outer voice, all that noise, I don't mean this, I don't mean this male, female, like man, woman. I mean male, female energy, all that male energy coming at you all the time. Do this, do this, do this, won't serve you unless you start with the feminine energy. This is who I am. This is what I want. This is how I could do it best. And then if it's not right, and Seth Godin says, you should give up when you sunk cost, give up the sunk cost and move on. But I call that all the things I've learned and all the things we learn when we say, no, that doesn't work for me. It's just roots like a tree. Think of us as trees. So, if you're a tree, then all the things that you've done all your life are roots. And if you know how trees, like I can see a tree out there and I know that its roots go like way back. I can't even see. If I could find all the little tentacles, it'd be way farther than and I can see. And then all the trees in my little forest back there are all talking to each other. The roots are all connecting. So the more experience you have, the more roots you have. So it's not a bad thing to say, I did all that and it didn't work. That's a root. It just helped build your trunk. And then your branches are how you go about, and your trunk is who you are. And then your branches are how you express it out in the world. And like trees, sometimes you trim your branches and they fall off because you don't want to do it that way anymore. I love being a financial planner, but one day I said, I don't want to do it like this anymore. I don't want to shift people's perceptions just around money. I want to shift people's perceptions about what is abundance to them. What are they worth? What do you really want? Do you really want a lot of money, or are you trading your hours for money when you really would rather play with your kid? I mean, what do you want? One's not better than the other, but you should know what it is. So then that branch fell off. It fell in the ground and it helped my roots grow better and my trunk go better. So it's all, if you think of yourself as a tree, then it is so much easier to understand the circular nature of life, that it feeds everything and you feed everybody else, and trees feed the world and they give to the world. So that's a long answer for that, but know yourself. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's great. What you're saying is great. It's because the question that you posed several times, who are you? Such a deep question, right? I don't know if there is a deeper question than that one. I think that's the deepest one I've ever heard that I'm aware of. And I think so often people get confused and think that they create an identity, which is it's a miraculous thing that we're able to create our own identities around certain things. People create identity around their job, their career, or being a parent, or a husband or a wife or whatever, but or even their characteristics. Busy is another one. You hear people, it's interesting to hear all the times that people say, I am something, I am busy, I'm so busy. And it's like, is that who you are? Like, what do you mean? Is that like who you are? You're busy? Like, okay, hi, busy, like, nice to meet you,
It's
or
your
like
perception of yourself.
yeah, it's your perception, right? Or I'm sick, and it's like, really, that's who you are? Or I'm tired, or I'm exhausted. And it's like, we can create all of these experiences that we're having or ways of being that we're in as an identity. And it's like, none of that is the identity.
Right.
And but then, like, Liz, I like your analogy is what I'm getting at of the tree, because the tree trunk, you're saying, is who you are. And and all those other things I just listed, perhaps those are all branches of the tree. the busyness. Maybe, I don't know if that's how you use this analogy, so I'm kind of making it up as I talk to you about it, right? But like maybe the busyness is the branch, and then you can recognize and say, that's actually not who I am, nor
Right.
is it who I want to identify as busy. So
Right.
maybe I can let that branch die off. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Let that
kind of the
branch
thought I'm
die
having.
off. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're so busy, you have no, trees are not busy. So go stand by a tree and ask how busy it is. It's just being a tree, but it still is very effectively a tree. So I think we use things like busy and, when we're talking about perception, which is the key thing that I talk about all the time, when you say, as you say, when I am busy or I am sick or I am old or whatever it is, then you've created this package, this paradigm, and everybody knows that whatever you say becomes your reality. They may not say it this way, but you know that what you believe to be true is your reality. So if mine's not yours, yours is not mine. It's great that we get to communicate, but you don't see the world exactly the way I do, and nobody does. So however we see the world is what we're going to experience. And so the whole thing that we're required to do is to shift our perception. That's the whole thing. That's it's not go out and do this and do that. It's like, how can we shift our perception to see more of what's here so that we can give more, receive more, be more effective, be kinder, be healthier. But as soon as we narrow that perception and say, I am, when I was younger, I talk like this to myself, but I would say, I'm only 19. I'm 19. Who wants to hear from me at 19? So I had this perception. No one wanted to talk to me about it. It took a long time for me to think somebody might want to hear. I'm sure I did it anyway in different ways. I had a dance company and they probably would say you were doing it all the time anyway, but not consciously as much as I try to do it now. So we're all here to shift our perception to the infinite. That's why I say it that way. That's what we're supposed to do. Shift our perception to the infinite. So anything that blocks us and categorizes us and said, because I'm this, I can't do that. Well, because you're this, you can do that. So we all do something different, but it's not the same as saying I can't do it. It's I choose to do this instead of that. It's a different thing. You know what I'm saying? So
I do.
yeah. So not that I
But
can't.
I'm going to push back on one thing that you said, because you
Okay,
said
cool.
you said that everybody knows this. You're saying like, we all know that what I believe is what I'm going to create, or what my experience is going to be, or what my life is going to be is based on what I believe. And like, I think that probably the most people listening to this have heard
Yeah,
that in probably infinite times. And I also think that many of them forget
we all do.
infinite times, as many
Yeah.
times as they've heard it. And then I also think that that there's concept and then there's like lived experience, or knowledge or
Yeah.
wisdom. And even though people hear it, have heard it before, which most of them probably have, I don't think that everybody knows that and gets that and believes it and trust it, to the fullest, to the infinite level that you're talking
Yeah.
about. So I think it's great that you said it again, because I know that people need to hear it. It's important to hear that you're
Well,
not a victim to.
it's so easy to forget because the world we have so many things to do. We have to brush our teeth, make food, make phone calls. There's so many things. We're not going around going, oh, this is my perception. So I just have to pause once in a while and say, well, what do I believe about this? Can I shift that belief? Can I shift that perception? So I see more solutions and I see more of what's possible for me or for that person. We have to be willing to do that. And when we all look back and say, I forgot for the last 2 months or whatever, we can't go, oh, you're such a bad person because you forgot. No, I forgot. Oh, I remember now. And we just keep moving on, because then we create that perception that we're a bad person. So we can't do that either. So it's a constant, we're students. We're
Yeah.
always students. And to think that any of us are masters or that we know everything is ridiculous, guys. That would be insane. But so we have to just keep shifting our perception so that we get more of what there is.
I love that. I love to shift your perception to the infinite. Yeah, just talk a little bit more about that, about the infinite. You talked about shifting your perception, but what about to the infinite?
Well, I used to say it differently, and I changed it to infinite because I don't want it to be locked into a spiritual, like this is what spiritual means. Because I think spiritual has become a paradigm. I'm spiritual, and then
Yeah.
and I don't mean to make fun of that or anything. I think we all just go, I'm spiritual, and then that's a paradigm, and we forget to look outside of that. And so there's so many ways to see what the infinite might mean. The other day I was out, my husband and I are really early risers, and we were out on what we call our moon porch because we can see the moon from the deck. And I looked up, and there was the sky was, it's like 3 a.m, and the sky was filled with these big white clouds so it was the most awesome sight. And you look up and you go, I don't understand a single thing about how that could be there like that. How could anybody think they're a creator when they can look up at that and you have nothing to do with it? It's just there. You could call it magic, you can call it the infinite, and still it's a material event. You can still measure it. So it's only a symbol of something even larger than that. So I think if we keep thinking everything we're looking at is a symbol of something more that isn't measurable, that's what I mean by the infinite. Do I know what that looks like? No, but I know that I constantly see symbols of it. And I think all of us experience that moment once in a while. Like, oh, and you get it, it's just, there's something that you just get it for a second, even if it's just a split second, and you feel part of the infinite in whatever way that is for you. And then you just keep looking for those. But so that's what I mean by the infinite. It's so much more than just spiritual. I definitely try to walk a spiritual path, but towards the infinite, whatever that is. And I think we know more as we go through life, but we were missing so much. It's an infinite, and it's infinite good. It has to be good, because otherwise it wouldn't look like that out there. And even though we're humans make a mess of things, there's so many good people and kind people, and goodwill does have more power than evil. And that the problem is that there's so much media that says evil is so prevalent and real and powerful. And that's a paradigm. And I think we all have to say, no, good is the only power. And then do whatever we need to do to keep that promise that good is the only power, which might be standing up to a bully or whatever it is. But good is the only power. That good is the infinite. I don't know how that works. Someday, if I ever figure it out, I'll let you know. But we probably won't be in these bodies when we figure it out. So
No, we won't. Probably not,
so,
right?
no, I don't think so.
Yeah. That's an interesting comment. I mean, I think that we're all part of the same,
Fabric of
source or
existence. Yeah,
energy
whatever that
fabric.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, like kind of like the branch and the tree itself and the roots. It's like the leaf all the way at the end of the branch is still connected in with the very tip of the smallest root. And I think that we're all
Absolutely.
connected in that same way in some
Yeah.
sense, from an energetic standpoint. So
Right.
when you do know, I will know, because it will already be my
Yes.
knowledge, because we're part of the same
Right.
fabric.
And that's why
right?
it's so important that everybody does their promise, because everybody doing their promise, it means that we all get to know more faster, and then there's more awareness, and then it just expands. It just keeps expanding. So everybody needs to, we're the roots, we touch each other, we're all trees in the universe, or however best you see that. But yes, as you said, we're all connected. We're just different ideas of that infinite. And crazy, but that's, I'm sure that's true. I just don't know how that works, but I know that if we keep shifting our perception, we get more awareness about it. And that seems like the best thing that we could do with our time and energy.
I love the way you said that. Yeah, if we all keep doing our promise, we're all learning and it's good for all of us.
Yeah.
This is a controversial thing to say. I get it. But years ago, there was a book written in early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s by Robert Kiyosaki and Donald Trump. And the book was Why We Want You to Be Rich.
I read
And
that book.
you read that book, and right, the whole premise, that I read it probably 20 years ago, but the whole premise was like, kind of, it was in a sense for me breaking down the disconnect between the rich and the not rich. It was like, hey, we actually want you to be rich, and that was like a weird idea for me to hear at that time. But it's just what you just said reminded me of that, because it was like the premise is like it's good for all of us, right? We're not just here to be rich and wealthy and you be down there and not be. It was that I actually am rich and I want you to be rich, and it's good for you and good for me and good for the collective. That's just what reminded me when you said that about do your promise, and it's and learn as much as you can, and then it's good
Right.
for all of us. That knowledge helps every single person. I think that's brilliant the way that you said that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just repeating what everybody else, many people have said. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Becca, this is brilliant. Let me do this.
Okay.
I want the audience, whoever wants to connect with you. I know that you're offering a gift for them to do that. You're giving away the daily shift. I'm going to link it when I send this out. You don't have to say the link right now, but can you just talk a little briefly about, for those people that want to connect with you, what is the daily shift all about?
Okay, well, that it's basically, it used to be a bunch of series of emails that I sent out, and I just stuck them all into a book. And there's 7 day, it was a 7 day series for each thing. It covered everything from wealth to relationships to food to just a whole bunch of things. So if you want to shift your perception about food for a week, you just do, it's like a workbook book. A
Okay.
lot of my nonfiction books are workbook books. So an idea, and then here's a workbook, an idea, here's a workbook, because I think spirituality doesn't do much good for you if it's not practical. So, so I have a lot of workbooks. So that's what the daily shift is. It's like, you could read the whole thing as it is, but it's basically meant you could flip through and go, I need to work on my concept of money this week. So I'll just go to that chapter and I'll just do the 7 days of money shift. And then, so that's what it is. So I thought your audience might like that a lot, because they could choose what they want to shift and work on and go back over and over again and do it again all by themselves. They don't need anybody else.
That's some freedom right there. I get to
Right.
choose. Yeah.
Right.
I like it. So it sounds like you kind of broke it into different domains, all the
Yeah.
different domains of life. And so whichever one they want to work on
Whichever
right
you're
now.
working on. Got a relationship problem, open that one up and shift for a week and see what happens. And since it's up to us to change, not other people. We have to change first. Nothing else changes if we don't. So that's what
That's
that's
right.
for.
All right. I love that. Well, thank you for giving that. I think that's a generous gift and an awesome gift. So I'll just say to the audience, you made it to this point in the interview. Clearly it's resonating. Go grab that gift, especially if the gift speaks to you. Don't tell yourself that you're going to come back and do it later. Well, you can tell yourself that, but the reality is, if you're wanting the gift, go grab the gift, right? Because it spoke to you.
Right.
And then Becca, you're awesome. I love this conversation. It just flew by, and I'm grateful to have you sharing your perspective and to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Oh, I thank you so much for asking me. I totally enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for asking me to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure. All right. Well, we'll cut it here, and everybody at home, we'll see you soon.
Bye.